Boom. So, as warriors, as soldiers, and particularly being a member of special operations, shooting effectively, accurately, and at an expert level is unbelievably important, and also a real source of pride and kind of competition amongst the troops in the elite units. Being able to shoot well, fast, accurately, and get the job done, behind the gun. I think people have a sense that maybe special operators, because of Vince Flynn's Mitch Rapp character and the Jason Bourne in the books and John Wick, that's what special operators are. I assure you, you can't do with a pistol what John Wick does with a pistol in those scenes. By the way, love those movies. And if you actually go watch on YouTube Keanu Reeves learning to shoot from the folks at Terran Tactical, he can shoot. So it's the real thing. Just, we don't use pistols for long range, multiple follow-up shots and so on, but it makes for great movie scenes. So I think people have a sense of what that shooting is. We do get into an exceptionally high level of shooting. There's people within the team, snipers and lead shooters, that become, basically the very best of those shooters and can compete, with frankly anyone in the world. Now in my post-military life, I've been around some of the professional shooters that run three gun competitions, long range competitions. And look, when you're sponsored by SIG or some of these great companies and all you do is shoot, you become an unbelievable shooter. I think the reason I tell this story is I didn't get to shoot anywhere near as much as I wanted to in my time on active duty. As an officer, my job was to lead. It was to run the gunfight and to manage the chaos. We actually used to teach our junior officers, like, hey, if you come back from a gunfight with empty magazines, you weren't paying attention to the gunfight. I mean, sometimes a gunfight goes down to the last bullet and you're pulling your knife, but you should be throwing magazines to somebody else so you can take a look back right and left and run that event, as opposed to being on the end of your trigger shooting. So officers don't get to shoot as much, or shouldn't be focused as much on shooting as enlisted. In my post-military life, I've taken on some more kind of competitive shooting a little bit, and in particularly hunting, which is one of my passions, being out in wild country and putting food on the table for my family. And the premium on shooting well is exceptionally high. It's not something that a lot of hunters do well, but those that take it serious get themselves to a high capacity of shooting. The thing that's interesting about shooting is, for years, I mean, not even a decade, 2 decades ago, shooting was very much, it wasn't secondary to hunting, but the idea of shooting beyond even what we consider now minimal distances would have freaked a hunter out. I mean, you talk to a hunter, still even a lot of Eastern hunters, Pennsylvania and the hardwoods out there. I mean, they got to try and find a place to shoot beyond 80 yards, 100 yards. They're in thick timber. Western hunters have probably been shooting longer for longer, but the idea of shooting beyond, 400, 500, 600, 800 yards would have been beyond belief not that many years ago. Now these have become, if you practice, absolutely reasonable distances to shoot at, because of the equipment and people putting time and energy into doing that well. I had a shoot recently that was interesting. I went to a range to kind of set up a new gun, and I did not shoot well. It was just an off day, but I also felt like even the things I was doing weren't getting good results downrange. It's super frustrating. It was a hit to my ego. And I called a buddy of mine to kind of talk through it. And it reminded me of a great story with this guy. He's become one of my great shooting mentors. His name's John Burns. He's one of the great long range shooters of all times. I say that in that it was from an older era. He was one of the first people, probably in I believe the 80s and 90s, that was shooting beyond 500, 600 yards, which, like I said, besides military snipers, nobody even thought that, frankly, possible. Now these distances have gone to a place you can't believe. But I remember I was actually shooting in a competition not long after I'd met him, and the competition is one that's called a one-shot competition. It's actually a hunt, but you get one shot to hit your target. If you hit the target, there's a long history. This competition has been going on up in Wyoming since like the 50s. Your name, if you're a hunter in that competition for your shot, if you are a hit, so you get one shot, you make a hit, you are in their record books as a hit for life. If you miss, you are in their record books with a miss for life. And it's like 3 days of parties leading up and events leading up to that shot to put even more pressure on that shot. The day before you take that one shot, they have a practice. You have several times to shoot, but you have an actual practice where you go shoot a smaller target of what you'll be shooting the following day. There's a guy on a megaphone or a microphone talking, tons of people watching. Every shooter in the competition, their helpers are there. So every person watch each individual person get up to take this shot. It's about 100-yard, what's called offhand shot. So you're holding unsupported, just a rifle up, floating, your targets are going to be moving, take that shot. 100-yard offhand shot for me with a good weapon is definitely a doable shot. I'm probably not going to hit 100 out of 100. I'm going to hit a lot. I go up there, and I'd say about half the people missed and hit. A lot of people rushed the shot, but I got up there feeling totally confident, and I missed. And so I'm going into this shot the next day, and that starts playing on your mind. And I remember calling my buddy John, and we got on the phone. He wasn't at the hunt. And I said, hey, boy, I blew it. You know, I'm running this gun. He built me the gun for this hunt. So I'm going through all these things that I thought I did wrong. I was like, you know, I think I rushed the shot. I definitely jerked the trigger instead of pressing it. I feel like my sight alignment was off. I think just all these things that I know points of performance wise were wrong. And as I'm saying this, I'll never forget his reaction. He said, hey, why don't we stop concentrating on the things you did wrong and focusing on that? Why don't we talk about the things you need to do right to take a good shot? Because that you know, and that's a way better place to be. So we started talking about position and support and balance, sight alignment, sight picture, trigger control, squeeze, follow through, breathing, all these things you need to do to take a good shot when it counts. But I never forgot how big a lesson this is beyond shooting, that when something goes wrong, we tend to focus on the things that went wrong. And maybe the thing that we should focus on is the things we know to do right to get a good result. Think of that, not the mistakes. Ever onward.